Welcome to the second panel in our Cyber Trends 2022 series. I am Lisa Easterly, President and CEO of San Diego Cyber Center of Excellence, or CCOE. We are a San Diego-based nonprofit that mobilizes businesses, academia, and government to grow the regional cyber economy and create a more secure digital community for all. Cybersecurity is now everyone's business. The FBI reports a 300% increase in cyber crimes across all industries during the pandemic, with the average cost of a data breach climbing over $4 million. More than half of these costly attacks are aimed at small businesses and medium businesses, our region's economic engine. Now, pair that with the global shortage of cyber professionals to thwart these attacks to the tune of about 3.5 million globally and more than 60,000 openings here in California, and it becomes mission critical to address this workforce gap. The good news is San Diego is leading the way with more than 870 cyber firms and the US Navy's Naval Warfare Systems Command. This cluster now accounts for more than 24,000 jobs and has a total economic impact of $3.5 billion annually. That's equal to hosting 9 Super Bowls or 23 Comic-Cons. This collaborative ecosystem is developing new technology, defenses, and the cyber warriors to combat this ever-evolving threat landscape. So let's tap into this robust expertise with our esteemed panel today to talk about what San Diego businesses and workers need to know about the cybersecurity workforce and talent pipeline. It is my pleasure to welcome our panel. So Eric, why don't you kick us off with an introduction?
Sure. Thanks, Lisa. And thanks for having me on the panel as well. Eric Basu. I am the CEO of a company called Haiku Cyber Range. I build Haiku specifically to give workers and potential cyber workers actual hands-on cybersecurity skills, connect them, and we do that using video games and gamified programs. We connect them to jobs, and we actually give them a skills resume where they can demonstrate to the employers their actual practical hands-on skills. Prior to Haiku, I ran a company called Centec Global, which was the largest small business in San Diego. We had a lot of cybersecurity work. I did that for 20 years. I sold that last year, and prior to that, I was an officer in the SEAL teams. Thanks, Lisa.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric, for joining us. Rich, we'll turn it over to you.
Hello, and thank you, Lisa. As mentioned, my name is Richard Portelance. I am the Vice President for marketing at JourneysMap, and I'm excited to discuss cybersecurity pathways with you. JourneysMap is all about creating logical pathways for students and workers to go from where they are today to where they want to get to. And we use underlying data sets such as the NIST-NICE framework in order to help them get there. My professional journey began as a graphic designer and as a digital agency creative director, including projects in brand and web application development and digital marketing. Having earned recognition as a client strategist, my career evolved to leading agencies and client engagements, both domestically and internationally. Over the past 10 years, my career has evolved into business and go-to-market strategies for software companies, cybersecurity assessments, and implementation work. And as a founder of a company called Career Path, where we were focused on software to engage, prepare, and launch learners on career-specific pathways. That led me to JourneysMap. And today we're helping JourneysMap to develop their own go-to-market strategy and build a broader awareness around the need for industry-specific pathways. So thanks for the invitation.
Great, thank you. And Miguel.
Hi, Lisa. Good morning to the panel members as well. Pleasure to be here. Always a privilege to be here with these guys, and so thank you again. My name is Miguel Sampo. I'm based out of San Diego. I work for RiskRecon. We are a Mastercard company. Everybody always says, Mastercard, well, what is this, right? But so believe it or not, Mastercard is a technology company, and I work for the division of cyber and intelligence, everything about protecting and securing a digital transaction, our vendors, our issuers, our acquirers. I've been in cyber, I'm going to date myself now, 24 years, worked for several of the large security firms out there, but truly a practitioner at heart. I've built many security programs. I've helped organizations build some from the beginning and continue to enhance theirs. And what a great time to be in this field as well. So anyways, pleasure to be here and looking forward to the conversation today. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Miguel. And last but certainly not least, David.
Thank you, Lisa. And nice to be part of this esteemed panel. I'm also San Diego local, not quite a native, but close. I've spent most of my career in higher education, but my passion has been enabling working adults to actualize the potential they have and gain economic mobility. And today, of course, technology is that tool for many people in order to make that next step forward. So I have served universities in the past at an executive level. I've also been in the private sector. I guess my expertise is partnering private and public sector organizations to enable both to achieve mission and advance. I joined SkillStorm just recently, actually just in March 21st is when I joined. I'm very excited to join them because I believe that their mission is spot on with what's needed today. I think it's the right time and the right product. And cybersecurity is certainly part of the training that we do, but we're trying to link the type of training that's in demand, that's needed, with people who also need to have that to advance in their careers. We want to do well, doing good. That's part of the mission of SkillStorm, and I'm delighted to be here and looking forward to hearing what my colleagues have to say today.
Great. Well, that's perfect. We'll jump right in then. Even while the pandemic was creating daily headlines of economic strife and workforce reductions, the cybersecurity industry continues to grow leaps and bounds to protect our data, our technology, our critical infrastructure, and our national security. Miguel, can you speak to the increasingly critical role and evolution of the cybersecurity professional across industries?
Absolutely. So I mean, I see this every day, right? So let's talk about the pandemic for just a minute and then we'll jump into it. So, you know, the days of working in the office and having to be in the office, I would say are not gone, but I think we recognize through the pandemic that working remote is definitely just as productive and we can do a lot of these things remote, right? And so what we find is that from a remote perspective, the needs of cybersecurity and robust cyber programs are ever more present now than they've ever been before, right? From connecting and protecting that remote connection, we take a couple steps back, and even with what's going on in the landscape today, there's been over a dozen ransomware attacks, big ransomware attacks with big names that are being affected, right? These threat actors are not just targeting one particular vertical or one particular company. They're going after everybody. It doesn't matter, big, large, small. You're a target, right? And so the need to have folks or individuals or talent that understand the different vectors, the threat vectors, is becoming even more increasingly. What we're finding is that truly there's a shortage of cyber professionals right now in the industry. I think there was a publication the other day that I was reading. It was on one of the security briefs, but the ratio is 5 to 1 on roles, that many job openings versus the number of professionals that are available for this. And that's incredible, right? I think back to when I went to school, excuse me, the days of having antivirus and just a firewall, those days don't exist anymore. Those are long gone. It's more sophisticated, understanding cloud protection, SaaS protection, perimeter security, outsourcing that. Something more near to me right now is third-party risk, right? I do everything I can to protect my environment, but then I'm outsourcing some of these jobs or this data out to another contractor or another vendor. Are they taking the same scrutiny with my data, you know, that I would, right? And so as a security professional, what we're seeing is that, you know, you can diversify and specialize, whether it's crypto, whether it's a security program, whether incident response. But at the end of the day, you're going to touch all these realms today, right? As a cyber professional. And as you look at some of these cybersecurity programs that are out there today, the cyber professional today is a lot more multifaceted than they were 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, right? Their scope of knowledge and tools and what they're doing has evolved. And so, you know, this has created jobs that are higher paying, more demand, and really involved, right? You're not just setting up antivirus anymore. I'm not picking on antivirus, but you're not just configuring an AV agent on a machine anymore, right? It's a lot more robust than that. So, and then as far as, you know, the industries, I'll tell you, a cyber degree or a cyber professional today can lend themselves really well. I mean, there's different specialties in fintech versus pharma or healthcare, but at the end of the day, you're still protecting data very similarly. There may be different compliance regulations and things that you'll pick up, but for the most part, you know, a professional in our industry can lend themselves really well across the full spectrum or the verticals that we see in the industry. I'll hand it over to my colleagues and see if they have any feedback as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Miguel. I kind of got us started on the exciting track of job openings and real opportunities, but also where those challenges lie for the companies that are there now blocking and tackling. So, and you really kind of hit on, you know, according to CyberSeek, there are currently 600,000 cybersecurity job openings here in the United States. David, with SkillStorm working with employers across this nation in multiple industries, as Miguel mentioned, what are you seeing as the most in-demand roles and skill sets?
Yeah, so we have kind of three verticals within our organization, and one of them, NextGen, which I'll speak to later as well. We basically go and talk to corporations, organizations, government agencies first, find out what their needs are, and then we hire and train specifically to meet those needs. So I think we might be uniquely qualified to answer that question. Lisa, you must be prescient having come up with that question. I did have a conversation with our lead trainer who's in the front lines and real time, you know, gathering this type of information. So I'll share what I learned from him. He said most in demand right now are SOC analysts and IAM specialists, blue teamers with some red team skill. I think speaking to what Miguel said just a minute ago about how people need to kind of have a more well-rounded background today. They're looking for technical experience in SIEM like Splunk or other SIEM tools. SOAR, EDR, areas like CrowdStrike and Tanium are in high demand, people with those skills. WAF, DLP, and then what we're seeing, just a tremendous amount of, I don't know if it's the most, but a tremendous amount of need in cloud security, not surprising, right? So people with skills in AWS, Azure, and Oracle. So that's the latest as of this morning.
Well, thank you so much, David.
You're very welcome.
And I think number one, and something that we at CCOE hear a lot from employers is really kind of core to all cyber roles is the ability to problem solve and the ability to multitask and the ability to like to be you know, kind of on the receiving end of something new every day. So Eric, as the prior CEO of a defense contractor, now Haiku, a cool new tech startup, you know firsthand how difficult it can be to find qualified cybersecurity workers. How can employers evolve their job recs to cast a wider net, and what criteria should they be focused on?
I mean, that's a great question, Lisa. I actually developed Haiku because of the difficulty I had hiring cybersecurity people when I ran Centec. You know, we would have people that came in and one lady, for example, she had a master's degree in IT and SCISSP, but we needed her to do actual hands-on skills. And when we put her in front of a computer for a practical test, she, you know, really didn't know how to do it. Through no fault of her own, she was doing the things she thought she needed to do in order to get a job. But from the employer demand cycle, I just needed somebody that could do the work. Master's degree was great, but I didn't need that. Another thing I found out on a lot of our government contracts, because the government does tend to be a little bit behind the commercial sector, they would still require a CISSP for jobs that had nothing to do with a CISSP. But this is somebody who wrote up the contract. The only degree certification they had heard about was CISSP, so they made a requirement to be a CISSP. So we ended up trying to find a lot of people with other qualifications that had nothing to do with the actual job. From an employer's perspective, I think what people need to be looking at is you need to get beyond that. I mean, in the government, they're limited by the government. I mean, you have requirements and you have to do them. But if you're an employer or you're in a position to make hiring demands, you really need to look for people. It sounds trite and obvious, but who can just do the job. Be less focused for cybersecurity on the actual degrees. I think degrees, for some things, they're very important. If you're building algorithms, then maybe you do need a degree in mathematics for that, although I know people who can do it without that. If you're looking for somebody for a management role, then certainly you want some of the skills that would come with a bachelor's degree and even potentially an MBA. But a lot of the cybersecurity work that we hire for, and a lot of the things that, David was just responding to, these are hands-on skills. These are journeyman, apprentice journeyman type of skills that I couldn't care less. We just hired a fantastic cybersecurity guy. Didn't have a degree. I specifically did not look for a degree because I wanted to filter for the skills that I needed. So my advice to employers is certainly look for the hands-on skills, the examples of the experience of people doing those skills, and the certifications are good, but they're not the end-all be-all either. And again, for me, at least for me personally, degrees are secondary compared to the first things that I mentioned.
Great, thank you, Eric. And I think, we've kind of talked as a group that the rise in remote working, increased talent mobility, and these cyber salaries can be challenging for the small to medium-sized businesses that drive our regional economy. Rich, how can employers retain and upskill their current workforce into cybersecurity career pathways?
That's a great question, Lisa. In order to answer that, I want to go back a little bit to something that Miguel said about professionals lending themselves to a broad array of niche jobs because of the skill-based. And Eric kind of touched on that as well, where, cybersecurity is about learning skills and you can adopt to many different jobs. Imagine if you can learn about that person and where they are today and what skills they have and underlie data that will help correlate them to specific jobs. And so what we've been working on in Journeys Map is taking the skills of an individual, understanding what they are, and mapping them against industry standards. So in this case, we have the NIST-NICE framework, which is, kind of our standard, what we go by and talk about. We've taken those standards and said, okay, let's extrapolate that information and then let's apply it to individuals so we can see if you're a 40% match for certain skills and for certain job type. So if you're trying to go from a cybersecurity analyst to a cybersecurity architect position, how do you get there? And so what we're talking to employers about is mapping, helping to map those people, giving them the tools in order to do that themselves so that they can see where I am today. And if I want to achieve that next level, some of it's going to be through personal understanding of what that individual is capable of, per Miguel's point. But then you also want to understand, if there is a clear pathway and if they can achieve that next level, like an architect position, well, that comes with a pay raise and maybe that's going to incentivize that worker. We want to help them get there. And so what we can do is we can also bring about local training resources or online training resources and map those into the person's journey. And so all of a sudden you have, here I am today, here's where I want to get to, and here's what I need to do. And then I can put that into a definable set of goals for myself. That's what we're trying to help people understand and do, because it's such it's a minefield. When you talk about cybersecurity, it's ever changing, the threats are coming. And so you need to have something that has some sure footing and give those people some goals so that they will remain with you and not get recruited away. So I think we have a lot of different challenges, but that's one way you can help to retain those employees.
Great, thank you. Yes, and we hear very regularly at this point, someone with 9 months experience is being recruited to the level that someone with 5 to 6 years was previously. And so, investing in employees and having them really become part of the corporate culture and knowing that they have the ability to then upskill into these roles that are, quite lucrative, while also opening up some of these more entry-level roles for those that are in the pipeline that we're seeing start to really become a bit more robust, is something that we're looking at from a regional perspective. So I think, David, we've been talking a lot about how cybersecurity is now everyone's business. How can companies without internal cybersecurity professionals go about building their teams or outsourcing their needs?
Wow. Well, there are an awful lot of learning opportunities out there, right? Everything from, absolutely free training that's totally asynchronous to synchronous training or hybrid training. What we're trying to accomplish at SkillStorm is meeting the learner where they are. And I think that's really important. So we've developed kind of a 3-tier approach. We recognize that, there are folks in each organization who probably, might have 20 years of experience, right? But things are accelerating so fast that, everybody needs to upskill. So we have one branch of our business that's all about upskilling and trying to meet the demands of those experienced folks who just need to get up to speed with a certain part of their business. Then there's always kind of the mid-tier folks who might have a bachelor's degree in an area of tech at CIS, and I think Eric eloquently stated what we're hearing as well. And folks with degrees. We do assessments for both soft skills as well as technical skills upon hiring folks, and oftentimes the bachelor's degree does enhance the soft skills, certainly, and the overall ability for someone to step in and perform, but it's not necessary in every case either. But we do have a division called Next Gen, where we only hire college graduates for that division. And we basically do an assessment of where they are. We don't want them to come in and fail. And then we hire them, we pay them while we're training them, and then deploy. So it's really the hire, train, deploy model. So that's a lot of corporations and government agencies are looking to us for that type of employee. So obviously we're an outsource for agencies and corporations. So there's kind of that mid-tier, and then there's the folks who want to dip their toe in the pool and say, is tech something that I could do? Could I be good at? And they come in basically with no background. And so one of the things we've done is partnered with universities, and we offer a dozen what we call pathway courses that are absolutely free. And coding, intro to coding is as you can imagine, the most popular one. But it gives people a chance to, without any financial and or time commitment, or not much. These are 2-week-long courses, roughly 5 hours a week online. They can see if it's for them. And if it is, then there are certification courses, and we're proud to say that just a couple weeks ago, Salesforce recognized us as an authorized training partner, as well as Pega and AWS. So we do have that as well for folks who really want to specialize in those areas. But getting back to your overall question, Lisa, if corporations and agencies can upskill themselves, great. Not many have the ability or pencil it out and go, this makes sense for us. So there's an awful lot of outsourcing that is going on, and companies like SkillStorm are trying to meet that need as best we can by trying to figure out how we can meet people where they are and help advance them with these types of skills to have more economic mobility. So I hope that answered your question.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Well,
Hey, Lisa, I'd like to add to that a little bit for a second.
Please, Miguel.
So I certainly on a daily basis see organizations outsourcing and retaining or hiring other firms for their security needs, but I yet to come across, unless they're a very small organization, 10 employees or less, that don't have someone, excuse me, that's dedicated to their security program or their security team. And so some of the best programs I've seen are a combination of both, right? They'll have an in-house person and they'll bring in a couple different skill sets at different levels, right? Some more senior than others, do a lot of cross training internally and do a lot of that cross pollination, and then outsource some of the other more sophisticated systems like a SOC. Maybe not every organization can build their own SOC, so it makes sense to hire somebody with a security operations center that can monitor that SOC 24/7 for them, et cetera, and look at events. So I think the best programs to look at are some that have a combination of both, And for new cybersecurity professionals getting in the industry, that's something they may want to think about, right? As I'm looking at an organization, do I want to work for an outsourcer, or do I want to work for the individual organization and see what kind of training and cross-pollination I'm going to get within the organization? So a couple different routes to market there, but at the end of the day, we always go back to a couple of things. Without a security program, what's the cost, the potential cost, right, from a risk mitigation? You mentioned early in the conversation, the average cost of a breach right now is $4 million. We got to do some math, got to weigh and see at what point what makes sense. Sometimes cutting a corner here will bite you over here, right? We see it all the time. And so just to augment what David was saying, some of the best programs that we're seeing are a combination of both an outsourcing and somebody wanting to build something internally as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Miguel. Well, actually, we're seeing homogeny is the bad actor's best friend also, and only about a quarter of the current cybersecurity workforce includes women, minorities, and neurodiversity. So kind of building on that thought, how can diversifying the cyber workforce help employers bridge that talent gap and also help against the fight against bad actors?
Absolutely. Women in technology, right? There's several groups around that today. Women-owned security firms, IT firms, excuse me. So we're seeing more and more of that. But I'll take that diversity, I guess, topic one step further. So when I think of diversity, it's not just gender-based, right? And it's about vertical-based, it's about geo-based. And what I mean by that is I'm seeing organizations that will cross-pollinate, just like I was mentioning earlier. They may be a pharmaceutical company, but they'll hire somebody out of fintech to bring fintech ideas into this pharma world. And they don't have to be based in San Diego, because with the remote workforce, you can have somebody that's seeing different types of cyber threats in Europe, Eastern Europe, in London. I mean, I see a lot of organizations hiring out of London today as well. And so when I think of diversity, I don't just think about it from a gender perspective. I think about it from a verticalization perspective. I also look at the diversity from a geographic and geo-based kind of centric kind of mindset. With the advent of being able to work remote and doing a lot of what we do from a remote perspective, unless you're actually in the physical data center and have to be there, this gives us a lot of flexibility. And so, I'm not going to make a soundbite from my organization, but I'll tell you that diversity is one of the things we absolutely look at. We absolutely think about, and not just from a gender perspective, but across the board, culture, everything, right? And bringing a mix of different talents together. That's the way that we get best of breed, right, across the board. And that's going to bring us different skill sets, different geography skill sets and experience and what they're seeing. And then from a gender perspective, obviously, this has been traditionally a male-dominated industry, and it's changing, it's evolving, and that's a great thing, right? It's not the world of men in IT anymore. It's people and women as well, women in technology. So I'm always excited. I see more and more programs and organizations. You see a lot of the upper academia that have women in technology programs. We have clubs around that. There's a lot of different types of grants and money that's offered for women in technology. I've got an 18-year-old that's going to ASU here in the fall, and he was looking at some of the IT programs, and there was a box in there of free money if you're female and want to go into this cybersecurity information technology field, right? Just for being female, right? And so there's a lot of programs out there, and I think a lot of it just building awareness and letting people do that. I know that the CCOE does a great job of doing a lot of talent fairs and career fairs and talking about the monies that are out there and how to take advantage of those. So I say we continue to do that. That's the best way to do that.
Awesome.
Could I jump on, Miguel? I'm sorry.
Please.
Yeah. Miguel, it's interesting. We actually built the World of Haiku portion of our product. It's actually a downloadable role-playing game. One of the reasons we went with a role-playing game is not only the way in which it teaches you, but 60% of role players are women. And it sounds kind of funny, but if you have wives and daughters that like to play these role-playing games on their iPad or their phone or whatever, women really enjoy that. So we wanted to get a medium that was applicable to women to get them comfortable with the idea of working at a Linux command prompt and looking at these other things. So once they're kind of in there, they're like, oh, this isn't so bad. This isn't so intimidating. Maybe I'll go, look at getting some of this money for this ASU degree, and maybe I'll look at going in cybersecurity.
Awesome. Well, Eric, we're going to actually build on that, because I think, today we've been talking about how the industry is evolving. I think we busted some of these myths that cybersecurity is just for techies, because it's really about problem solving and thinking about things from a different perspective. And then we also really talked about that you don't need an advanced degree and 10 years plus experience to work in this field. So Eric, what advice do you have for these non-cybersecurity workers that want to transition into a cybersecurity position?
You know, what's really interesting is we just hired a cybersecurity position, and 95% of the people that applied on LinkedIn were transitioning from another job. And you could look at that a number of ways. I mean, you could say that the cybersecurity people were already comfortable in the jobs, or however you want to look at it, but 95% is an overwhelming amount of people. There's a huge number of people who want to get in the industry for great reasons, right? They see job security in it, which is true. I mean, you're always going to have cyber attacks. Companies go up and down, but and it's a growth field. It's, you know, probably what software development was back in the 80s, where everybody wanted to be a coder because that was the thing to do. So I had a lot of experience both interviewing people that I was pulling in online, because I really was looking for some, I needed some, it's more senior position. My person is that I just hired as a senior engineer. It's really hard to bring somebody in. You have to bring somebody in an entry level position. We just don't have one of those available right now, but I talked to a lot of folks that were doing that. And I've given a lot of advice to people. I get it all the time on LinkedIn, or, you know, through a contact where somebody says, hey, my son wants to go in cybersecurity. How do they, you know, get into this? My daughter, a lot of cases. And the number one thing that I tell them all the time is you have to be able to demonstrate in the interviews to the employer that you have hands-on experience. So I go back to the lady that I interviewed, and it was probably 10 years ago. She wasn't able to demonstrate in the interview that she had the hands-on experience that I needed. And it depends on the job. If you're hiring a penetration tester, you know, you better be ready for the employee to stick you in front of a Kali Linux box, you know, attached to a range on the back end, and be able to actually demonstrate, you know, all the tools. If you're gonna, you know, go in for a DITSCAP position in the DoD compliance, you better actually know what the standards are, be able to read them, and be able to, you know, I mean, you know, be able to recite them, and be able to talk about them, and talk about how you would apply this in the real world. And that's applicable to any person, any kind of job, but particularly in cybersecurity, for all the things that we talked about already, is that they may not, that employer may like your certification, they may like your CEH, and they may go, oh, OSCP, that's a great one. But they're trying to get you to, you know, to add value from day one. And so being able to do hands-on training and certification, and kind of as a self-plugging, and that was exactly why I built Haiku, is because people can play a video game, and that at the end of it, they're going to know how to navigate around a Linux box. So hopefully, you know, they go to an employer, they can actually, you know, if an employer puts them in front of a Kali Linux box, they're going to go, oh, I've done this before. I played this game for hours and I really enjoy it, so I know how to do this. And then the other thing that it's really hard for people to do right now is, how do you demonstrate to an employer, if you don't have a practical hands-on exam, which most employers don't do. It's expensive and hard, and it takes a lot of time. And a lot of the time your HR department and a large department doesn't have the skills to be able to administer those. Is how do I demonstrate? And so that's another thing that we found as a demand signal, is we offer the players in the game, in our products, the ability to demonstrate a skills resume that can actually hand to an employer. That it's not, the badges are great, the certifications are great, but it'll tell you how many hours did this person spend on Metasploit, how many hours did this person spend on Nmap, and more importantly, here's an independent assessment. Are they an apprentice, a journeyman? Are they a master? Or are they a, you know, ninja at this particular skill? And I did that from the employer's perspective, and I'm like, man, that would have made my hiring so much easier if I could do that. So, so that's my advice to candidates, is find a way to be able to demonstrate that hands-on experience, and even practice with your friends and mentors and coworkers. Say, hey, can you give me a technical, a tough technical challenge that I would do, because I want to be able to do this in a job interview. And if you do that, then you're gonna, you know, as a candidate, you're gonna be, you know, 10 legs up on your competition.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. I think that kind of leads really nicely, you know, for our audience that is ready to join this fight, you know, from transitioning service members to students to seasoned professionals with sights on the next level. Rich, how would they go about getting started?
So one great way to get started is right on the CCOE website, utilizing the Career Map Assessment Program that's located at cdccoe.org/career-map. There a user can complete the interest survey, skill assessment, and begin a career exploration. I do want to go back, David, you mentioned in your intro about public-private partnerships. And I want to echo that sentiment and provide an example of how that can work, because I think it's super important for not only young students, but also dislocated workers or those looking for jobs. For Journeys Map, partnering with companies like SkillStorm in our public-private partnerships is really critical to building an architecture for a robust career pathway. And what we did in Connecticut, and that happens to be where I'm from, I'm not a West Coast guy, we created a program called CyberPath, and that is working with the local workforce board, local high schools, local regional community colleges, and the local employers. And what we're trying to do is bring all those parties together so that we have a program that articulates what needs to get done from a student or dislocated worker perspective from the point they are today to where they want to go in the future. And that could take a year or two, or it could take 3 years. And keeping track of those goals during that time is very, very difficult. And so what we want to do is provide the steps, the underlying architecture. So if we have the employers and they're articulating what the skills are, and I think Eric mentioned, building out it not only the skills, and sometimes they're applicable across multiple job types. If the student knows what skills they have and then which ones they're missing, they can start to build towards those goals over time. And those public-private partnerships are so critical. So CCOE here is putting this together. And on the West Coast, I know you have partnerships, Lisa, and you're bringing different parties together in order to foster those relationships. And I'm going to just express how critical that is for these students and these dislocated workers. You've got a huge cyber community in San Diego. It's amazing industry, and letting the students know what opportunities are there and then giving them those pathways is, I think, going to be the key to the future. And so we want to help to foster that, bring all those parties together and make those pathways happen. Because we want to signpost those skills and traits, make sure that they know what's available and how they can get there.
Great, thanks, Rich. And yes, here in San Diego, we actually have a program called Cyber Hire that's in partnership with the San Diego Workforce Partnership, San Diego Regional EDC, and CCOE. That does exactly that, brings those dislocated, underrepresented workers into the field with resources, with funding that also helps the employers offset some of the internship costs and allows students to be able to work, as Eric says, and go to school at the same time so that they are integrated into the corporate culture while they are going through their career pathways. So thank you so much, gentlemen. Well, I think we've read our audience with a lot of great thoughts, but any final thoughts on what San Diego businesses and workers need to know about the cybersecurity workforce and talent pipeline? And that's open to all.
Well, I'll jump in real quick and just say, there's plenty of opportunity in cyber. And I think the other gentleman mentioned that it's not a career that's going to go away anytime soon, like development was 20 years ago. We have over 500,000 jobs in the US and 3 million internationally. It's a wonderful career opportunity. There's lots of expansion out there that you can utilize a broad array of skills, and there's no stopping career promotion for those who are incentivized and energized by opportunity. This is a great field, so I would highly encourage anybody out there who's looking for a career change or to get into a career to look at cyber.
If I could just jump in and add to that, back with the DEI question, over half of the people we employ actually are from underrepresented populations. And the reason, really, the biggest reason is because we hire an awful lot of military. And so if you're looking to fulfill some of those mandates or goals, please look to your veterans. And we're very, very, very proud to and Eric, I know you have that background, so thank you for your service as well. And
Yes, thank you, Eric.
Eric,
I would echo the same thing, Lisa. There's 600,000 jobs in the US right now in the cyber field. Don't just be focused on the ones that see, look across the board. Truly, military brings great experience, and they've got that on their resumes as well. But put the experiences you've used, those internships to work across the board, and leverage that experience to potential, employers that you're looking at, and continue to look. One thing that I'll share and that I tell young people is, if you don't look, you're not going to get it, right? You got to put some work into it. And if you put the work into it, it will be rewarding. But I think one of the challenges we have, and I'm going to say something about our young generation, is that there's a little bit of a sense of entitlement. They want to give it to them, and it's not that easy, right? You got to go out, you got to go out and look for it. You got to go out and want it. You got to want to get it. It's not just going to come tap you on the shoulder. Here you go, right? And so as long as we continue to teach them this and continue to put it out there, I think it's going to continue to boom. But the whole cyber landscape, it's not getting safer. it's getting bad, right? And so we're in a good spot, right? This is, we're only at 50% saturation in cybersecurity or in the cyber market. So there's a lot of growth opportunity still that's coming.
The only thing I could add to that is that, and you've heard me say this before, Lisa, is that for people going into cybersecurity to think it has to be a technical job, it doesn't have to be a technical job. If you want to go into cybersecurity sales, the skill set there is completely different. You need to know a little bit of cybersecurity. You need to know what you're selling. You need to understand what your company does. But for people that say, I'd love to get into cybersecurity, but I just, I'm not very good with technology. You don't have to be. There's a lot of other things. You can be a product manager. You can be a project manager. You can be a salesperson. A dozen other jobs in cybersecurity that just require you to understand what your company does. You don't have to be the engineer.
That's a great finale. I myself included. I tell everyone I am a cybersecurity professional. I am not a cybersecurity technician. My background is actually finance, economics, and marketing. And so there is a tremendous opportunity for anyone out there that is interested in a field that is on the absolute cutting edge, that is high energy, that is with tremendously intelligent, smart, fun people, that you have growth potential. So many thanks to Eric, Rich, Miguel, and David for this insightful discussion today. We invite employers and job seekers to visit CCOE's website at sdccoe.org for more free resources, including a lot of those that you heard about today. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to the next San Diego Business Journal Cyber Trends panel discussion this summer.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a great day.